Hello everyone and welcome to Ahsoka Episode 2 Breakdown. I'm so glad they premiered with 2 episodes. That's so great of them to do. But yes, where we left off, Ahsoka came just in time to save Sabine and get her medical treatment for her stab from Shin's orange lightsaber blade. And here in the opening shot, it was really cool that we get to see Ahsoka doing her Force psychometry again. But not only that, we saw a little bit of Sabine doing this in the previous episode, but we see more of Sabine focusing on her thoughts and memories. And it was really intriguing the fact that Ahsoka connected with her mind as she's going through this. And I thought that was really cool because that's something I never would have thought Force users could do, to be able to connect to each other through their thoughts and memories in this sense. But that's just to show how great of a Jedi in terms of Force abilities Ahsoka is. It did suck that even though Sabine did manage to decipher the code within the Orb of Eden thing, all the bad news, what with her getting in a fight with Shin, losing said fight, losing the orb, and having her records being destroyed, even though that's not her fault. And on top of that, her taking the orb in the first place just leaves Ahsoka in a state of slight frustration with Sabine, but she's also understanding in the sense of Sabine was just trying to do her best to help everyone out. And Ahsoka understands that without her, they wouldn't have progressed this far into the investigation. But because she's very injured, Ahsoka tells her that her help is no longer needed. Even though I feel like that's kind of harsh and she should have said, no, you should stay here and recover. But I think with a future moment in the episode, we understand why Ahsoka's so harsh, or at least as harsh as she is with Sabine, given both of their personalities. I find it kind of sweet in a way that even Huang is worried about Sabine. Well, we catch up with Baylan and Shin. They're at the Space Stonehenge location, which we also find out is another Night Sisters ancient site. Or at least it was implied to be so, but it turns out that it could be from an ancient species even farther back than the history of the Night Sisters, which is so cool. Just diving into all this ancient lore from the far past of magic and Star Wars. So awesome. And with that, Ahsoka Episode 2 goes on a roll. It was really cool to see Ahsoka not only doing some investigative work with the Force as she goes back to Lothal, but also manages to bait one of the remaining assassin droids into, or at least out of hiding, so that way she can disarm it and capture it, bring it back to Sabine for further inspection. As Sabine is tinkering with the assassin droid head, we get a little bit more of Rebels comedy, which was pretty fun to watch. But she comes across some data that she managed to retrieve and informs Ahsoka and Hera that the assassin droid actually came from the planet Corellia, which we know as to be the famous homeworld not only of Han Solo, but also the planet that was used a lot for shipyards as well, especially during the Imperial era, which makes it very clear that that's most likely where the next clue will be in this grand mystery. So Ahsoka and Hera rendezvous to Corellia. When Elsbeth reunites with Baylan and Shin, she activates the orb into one of the platforms or pedestals that's created there on site, and thus activates the giant global kind of spherical star map thing that we saw during the trailers. And man, were the visuals so great. And what's the cool dual galaxy visual that pops up like it did in the first episode? It beams out to one of the main obelisks in the site, and it opens up that portal thing. And not only that, we get constellations of the Purgle, which makes complete sense since they most likely came from the unknown regions, and naturally that's where they took Ezra and Thrawn to. And a really great theory that I saw during YouTuber Star Wars Theories watch party chat discussion with one of his chat members is, what if this thing in actual space is like a giant portal, instead of just naturally just jumping to a next planet like in the traditional sense in Star Wars? But it would be so cool if it's like this giant galactic thing, this giant spatial force that you just enter and you're just teleported right into a new galaxy. That would be so visually fascinating. It would be so cool. All this stuff is just so mind-blowing. It's gonna be so cool when we get there later in the episodes. Once Ahsoka reunites with Hera at Corellia, it's so interesting to see the interconnectivity of the New Republic and the former Empire employees, and how greed really does move everything around in terms of the schemes and plots. Corruption influences people to follow what they're loyal to, whether or not it's for the good or for the bad. And it's crazy to see the seeds to what will then be the First Order merging. It's much like how in the MCU when everyone thought that Hydra was gone, but secretly they were working behind the scenes until they grew strong enough to emerge with immense power. That was a really great thing to see during these scenes of Hera and Ahsoka investigating at Corellia. It was also a really nice and inspiring little moment between Sabine and Huang as he's trying to motivate her to pick up the lightsaber again and continue to follow as a student and get back into the warrior spirit. That was pretty cool. And it gives a sense of gravitas to the theme of one isn't knowledgeable of whether or not they're ready for the adventure ahead of them. It's when they feel that they're ready is when they're actually ready to take on whatever lies before them. I thought the writing was so cool and so great in this scene. Love it. It was pretty funny to see Ahsoka and Hera play cool cop against this guy, this random businessman dude. All that was pretty great too. And then they get their real hint from one of the protocol droids who could not lie, which I thought was pretty funny, but it was pretty crazy once the Imperial employees start firing at them, and then that's when the action started picking up. But it just goes to show how this era of Star Wars between the original and sequel trilogy likes to build up on the sense of seeds of evil always being there if the overall evil is gone. Thought that was pretty neat to see in the story. It was cool to see not only Ahsoka and Hera immediately jump into action, but for them to have their own respective little fights as Hera and Chopper go after the shuttle to try to stop it or at least put a tracker on it, while Ahsoka deals with the assassin droid and the Inquisitor. Garrick, I believe his name is? Garrick? But yeah, once this fight was going to go down, you know that it was going to be cool. Every single time Ahsoka fights an Inquisitor, you know it's going to be a great fight. But man, I have to give props to my man Inquisitor here for being the last surviving Inquisitor. I feel like that makes him either the best Inquisitor that he's survived so long, or that makes him the worst Inquisitor since he's never found any Jedi, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just downplaying him, or maybe he just has the Inquisitor getup, but he's not like the old Imperial Inquisitors, you know? But it would be kind of cool to see if there's more to this character than meets the eye, for now at least. But it is still so cool to see Inquisitors in live action, even if they're nothing characters, like the one in Tales of the Jedi. It's still so cool to see them in action. But I don't know, just saying, every time an Inquisitor goes after Ahsoka, they don't make it that long. This guy Merrick's Inquisitor design is so cool, and shoutouts to one of my best friends for pointing this out. But his armor does look like a typical knight's armor as well. The way that the helmet is with the face guard lines go across it. It's very like almost spherical in a way, and it seems like very like a classical sense of armor. I thought that was pretty cool, and I agreed with that observation. Really good on you, mate. But yeah, the fight goes down, and it was pretty awesome to see. And naturally, the only reason why this Inquisitor survived the fight with Ahsoka was because he was able to dip out of there with a distraction. Someone's calling me! The classic rebel humor with Chopper and Chopper scenes were so funny. I thought they were pretty great. And I honestly kind of forgot that I believe it's Dave Filoni behind the voice too. And you can kind of hear Chopper almost saying, or at least emoting so well that you can kind of tell what he's saying. It was honestly pretty funny and pretty great. Love Chopper. And with Chopper having thrown the tracking device on the ship, at least the squad has a means to find out where the villains are hanging out in. And with that, a mission success. It was cool to see Sabine finally get into that mentality of having to go back into the fighting mindset as she dons her Mando armor and she cuts her hair. In a very cool and reminiscent scene to the scene in Mulan when she puts her armor on. But yeah, this made for such great character development on her part and great way to set up her story going forward. And thus, with Hera giving Ahsoka a little bit of motivational words, Ahsoka heads back to Sabine. And it was cool to see Hera, and it would be understandable if we don't see Hera for another couple episodes while we follow Ahsoka and Sabine on their journey, but it would be definitely cool to see Hera be a recurring character throughout the story. And I'm pretty sure she'll most definitely show up at the Ahsoka finale too. And then we see the classic scene from the trailers and behind the scene leaks from long before, which is very reminiscent to the Rebels finale of Sabine getting ready, all geared up with her purple hair, touching the mural and getting ready to meet up with Ahsoka. But dang, I thought this scene would be near the beginning, but who would have known that all this stuff happened before the Rebels finale actually took place? That's so crazy. That essentially episode 1 and this episode were just the prologue to the Ahsoka story and Rebels season 5. But then it does bring up the interesting question. Does that scene take place at the end of Ahsoka? So hear me out. So we know that in the Rebels finale, we see Ahsoka the White in the Gandalf the White outfit meeting up with Sabine. And seeing this scene, how it's different from that one, where it's almost reminiscent, I always feel like it'd be kind of cool if, of course, here it's more like we have a way to find Ezra and Thrawn. And then that later scene could be, oh, we've actually found Ezra, let's go get him. But I could be wrong, and like my brother mentioned, it could just be a retcon, which is fine. I just keep reaching too much, you know? And thus, with the team back together again, we're finally off to the next exciting adventure of Ahsoka. But before then, when we catch up with Elsbeth and the other antagonist, we see that the reason why they stole this giant hyperspace engine thing was because they're building a giant hyperspace jumping ring thing from prior Star Wars stuff. That's insane. It's so cool. I mean, it makes sense that like going from a galaxy to a known galaxy would take such immense effort, and you would need like a giant rocket thing in order to get there. But dang, I never would have thought that they were building something of this caliber. I don't know why it blew my mind, but it's really cool. What is it? The Eye of Sion, they call it. And thusly, we see that Elsbeth is on this Eye of Sion, which is most likely either the same one that we shall see Thrawn in by the end of the series, or he has been building his own on his end in space. But that wouldn't really make sense either. So that would mean that Thrawn would definitely be using the Eye of Sion at some point. But it was cool to see the villains all line up and meet with each other. This cool new way to have holograms was really awesome. And you can tell that Balin's fight with Ahsoka is coming soon, since he's trying to anticipate her next move with the Force. And oh, you know Shin's rematch with Sabine is going to be awesome. Can't wait to see. And thus brings an end to the Ahsoka episode 2 review. And wow, that was still a pretty cool episode, and I'd still give it a 9 out of 10. Maybe an 8, but it's still pretty good overall. And I do like the things that they're setting up, well, with character dynamics and story, and of course the world building as well. Things are going very awesome. It looks very positive going forward with Ahsoka. So let's put our trust in Dave Filoni and or to bring Star Wars back into the good light. With next week's episode being shorter, we shall see what that means in terms of the story that it's going to be telling us. But with that, what do you all think? What theories are you bringing up, and what questions or concerns do you have going forward for Ahsoka? Let me know down in the comment section down below, because I'd really much appreciate to hear your insight. And hey, if you liked both of my videos for Ahsoka, why not drop a like on both of them? And check out some of my other review videos on different series here on the channel. But with that, I hope you all continue to have a great day, and I'll catch you next time, especially for the next Star Wars Ahsoka episode breakdown. My name's CJ, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye for now.